Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Designers and DMs. I'm definitely not Roger, although I am cosplaying him with a homemade vest. So I thought that was fun. Also, it's hot in my basement, so I'm taking this off. That's for you, Roger. So, yeah, good evening, everybody. So tonight we are talking more about game design with these lovely gentlemen here. We got Matthew Tapp from Barrows and Borderlands. We've got the Chubby Funster, master of all things Shadowdark and One Day OSE. And then we also have Todd DM Blackwall of Dropship and Horde Wars fame. And I'm just here to try to possibly keep them on track. I don't really have much to contribute to this other than props. So, how's it going, guys?
Oh, it's going good.
It's going good,
Excited
man.
to be here.
Dan, don't sell yourself short. You've read more role-playing games than 98% of the population. So
that's probably true.
That's from a judgment perspective, you're in the top tier.
Oh, thanks, buddy. So, well,
not to mention, have you played content from all of us?
Yes.
Yeah.
So literally all of you.
Helps.
Yeah.
He's about to tell us how bad our layout and design is.
Okay. No, actually, let's see. Matt has murdered me at CNYCon. Greg has murdered me in Gods of the Forbidden North, not with his stuff, but just with him DMing. And Todd did not murder me in Dropship.
You lived. Yes.
I did live.
That was surprising.
So. I survived my dropship adventure as well, although it was Nate, not Todd, who abandoned me in my moment of need.
All right. Well,
his name was on the game, and I signed up, and then a week later, Nate.
That wasn't me. That was the event.
He saw me. He was like, "I can't take this kind of heat," and then.
Was this at North Texas?
Yes. Yeah, I get that it's a sketch. I'm just giving him some shit.
No, it's all good. Nate ran the game I was in at CNY. It was fun. I tried to get into a Horde Wars game at North Texas, but I have issues with how North Texas handles scheduling. But that's not the topic for tonight, so I'm just not going to bring it up.
Indeed. All right. So tonight, though, we're talking more about game design, but more on the kind of production end, it sounded like?
Correct. Layout, design, proofing, getting to print, all that fun stuff.
And we did talk last time a bit about the idea of doing your writing in layout or in a version of the layout as a way to really help save time and really get your presentation ready ahead before you even have all the assets for the product. And a way to just make your writing more efficient, because if you get stuck somewhere, you can just move to another section of the product because you've already got your chapters laid out and you know what's supposed to go where.
Yeah, that's fair.
That sound like an accurate recap, guys?
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
Okay. So as far as other stuff with layout, for printed products, margins can be kind of annoying.
That is the number one thing when people start getting a drive-through RPG publisher account is they go, "Oh my God, I've ordered so many proofs trying to get these margins correctly," because they don't know how to do the bleed. They don't know how to set it so that most people don't even know. They think of margins as just a universal four sides having the same value, but you need to have your inside margin different from your outside margin when you're printing a book, because there's going to be a spine.
Yeah.
So you need more space on one side than the other side. But then when you do it in PDF, you don't want it to look like all your pages are on the wrong sides. So it's an adventure. Yes.
Yeah.
So
and the file formats for different, whether or not you're doing it in print or for the PDF, if you want to be interactive or press ready. And I am one of those unlucky victims that ordered 1 million proof prints and was stuck learning the hard way how to do it.
Yep. When I order proofs from DriveThruRPG, it's the only time I use 2001 PDF-A format exports out of InDesign, Why would you ever? Because they've standardized it to that format design, and so like if you export it in like the latest PDF version, doesn't even matter. Like they need all sorts of things to line up, and they'll just reject your file.
Mhm.
I know Lord Mattias was having a lot of trouble getting his print proofs ready for Living Darkness Volume 1, and Bacon was helping him with that. I don't know the details, but I know he was very frustrated. So
I think I said this to Roger a while ago because I think it's him that keeps bringing it up as like the secret hack to getting your proofs quickly is to order 5 of them.
Yeah.
But make sure you want to pay for that. But
Yeah.
I had to have it for Shadow City, like a certain date. Like I was like, I have to have this right now. So,
Now, I will say that while certain companies like DriveThru or Lulu can be really good for international distribution or for doing like a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign, generally speaking, if you're looking to produce an RPG and you have some money available to pay for printing, or you're able to raise the money ahead, other than for fulfillment purposes, they are not the best quality, and they're not the easiest to work with if you have the resources to do it. Otherwise, there are a lot of other printers that you can get a large amount of books from, both in the US and certainly overseas. Lithuania is a good choice. China can be. I stick entirely with US simply because I'm a citizen of the United States and I'd like to support our country. But but the reality is, when you're printing, you shouldn't plan to distribute through DriveThru RPG if you're going to do a large print run, because it will be more expensive typically, other than for the crowdfunding campaign itself, like you did.
Yeah. So when I did Shadow City, basically taking a bunch of orders, and I set it up so that everything was basically at 20. You're paying $20 for the PDF, and then you got coupons to do the soft cover and the hardcover if you wanted. So that way, I wasn't having to figure out everybody's shipping. I wasn't having to figure out all the fulfillment of any of that. So DriveThru does take a chunk for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the service that they're providing you, as well as marketing from being on their website and all that stuff. Yeah. But so I took in basically order list. I transferred it over. Everybody got these coupons, and then they just ordered them individually whenever they wanted. And so after the thing was over and I sent out all the coupons, like pretty much I was done. I had to answer a few questions and field some problems, but DriveThru does very good at just regular transaction. When you start doing kind of weird stuff is when it can get crazy. But like their advantage is a lot of people go to the website to buy with the intent to buy role-playing games, way more than the number of people that go to Amazon with the intent to buy role-playing games. For instance.
Oh, for sure. No, I agree that selling for that purpose is good. Yeah.
But they do take a big chunk, even if you're on a exclusive contract with them. They take a big chunk, and by doing it the way I did, because it was a coupon on the part that I don't get paid on. So like when you sell on DriveThru RPG, the amount that you charge for you is like an upcharge on the print. So if it's $7 to print this thing in softcover, and you put a $10 charge for you, then the book price is $17. Now, when you make the sale, they give you your percentage of the 10. You don't get any money off of the print cost because that's a hard cost. So by doing it the way that I did, I got the Kickstarter fee, which is only 10%, which is way less than DriveThru's percentage. And then DriveThru basically did all the pre. So that was the advantage of doing the print through DriveThru for a Kickstarter. Is I got the Kickstarter percent of 10, and then everything passed to DriveThru essentially at cost from their perspective. They weren't making kind of a big margin on there. And then on future sales, I've made that it works normally, but on that big lump of Kickstarter sales, it's way more profitable from a producer's perspective to have it be fulfilled that way than just to be selling everyday normal transactions on drive-through.
Right. And the thing is, though, you can't do high quality binding that way. You can't get certain kinds of
Ribbons.
covers. There's a lot of
Sound.
limitations. So I definitely agree. Drive-through can be useful for mass distribution, especially after like a Kickstarter or something. But if you do raise enough money or you have enough yourself, it can be very good to go through more dedicated or more traditional printing companies, or even through ones that print and produce like comic books, because they're going to have very similar distribution. And if they can do a soft cover or a hard cover with good binding and stuff for you, they're obviously going to be very good at doing color work because of the nature of their business. Yearbook companies at the right time of year are also often hungry for work. Probably don't go to them at the end of the school year. So there are ones that I could recommend that Jason Vey I know would recommend, and that we've used that work quite well. Matt, however,
I was about to say, some people just print them in their garage. I mean,
Matt
also the Madman approach. So the Madman approach is you just cry in your shed alone while you're stapling pieces of paper together, thousands of books at a time, and then eventually it gets done. No, but I mean, if you are doing something that's a bit more zine sized, or if your pages are sub 100 page booklets and you've got maybe $500 to $700 to invest at the beginning, you can do home printing, especially on small runs. So like, for example, with Barrow Mail that I just recently launched, the tools that I needed to get were a good printer. I went with inkjet because of quality. And you would want something that like a business level inkjet. Now, if you've got Buco's money, you can go buy yourself a Heidelberg printer and go all crazy, but you're going to be spending like $250,000. And then,
oh yeah, just let me mortgage my house one moment.
Yeah,
please.
Right. Finding the right paper and the right cover that you want. That's where your money's going to go, is in like ordering that sort of stuff and ink. I use an EcoTank printer now because it's much more efficient on ink. And then, you've got to get stuff like a long-armed stapler. And, if you want to stay on the low end of cost, you can get everything you need from Office Depot. But if you are doing a little bit more, like, I'm able to keep up a fairly normal production, but that's because I have 4 of the printers, and I've been investing in more and more tools to help me out, like a book press and stuff like that.
Rumor has it, Matt, that you sleep in your warehouse and your pillows are made of booklets. Confirm or deny?
No, but I do. Let me see. I can turn this off.
Hi, Agile.
But I've got 2 of the printers over there, and then I don't know if you can see. I can turn it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I get
got like an assembly line going.
Book press, paper cutter. That over there is like a shrink wrap machine. So it's kind of just nice things when you're shipping to people. But if you start getting to a bigger scale, I mean, that's why I had to eventually go with Drive-Thru and Lulu for the hardback version, because there's only so many orders I can keep up with. And you also don't want people to wait. I mean, people might be okay waiting a couple weeks if you got a lot of orders coming in, but people don't want to wait a month to get their game books that they ordered from you.
When is the future Kickstarter for the Matthew Tapp bespoke Smythe sewn hand sewn binding book?
Oh yeah, I think maybe at the end of time. I think I have a book that talks about it, Revelations.
All right, that's fair.
about whenever I get ready for that.
So going
But
back
this,
to oh, go ahead. Tom.
I think this is true for Greg too, though I could be wrong. I think all of us do several different distribution routes. Like Greg, you're doing PDF sales, you're doing physical sales, and then you're doing some that are just like ongoing through drive-through, as well as some that were essentially right through Kickstarter.
Yeah, that and then this new Kickstarter is going to be. I decided to pull the trigger on doing like a Smithsonian ribbon, nice version, because I'm going to be printing poster maps anyway, which I can't do through drive-through.
Right.
So the Shadowsun map is colossal. So there's no way I could do it really through drive-through unless it was like breaking it up into regions that get printed on the 12 by 18, which is the max size. And to be fair, that 12 by 18 size that they have on drive-through, they print that real quick.
They do.
But and they ship it out real quick. Now it's just on a separate system, so it doesn't come with your books. You have to pay shipping twice unless you're doing huge things.
Right.
So since I was gonna have to be doing a big poster thing anyway, and I'm still trying to figure out, it's complicated with printing. Yeah, exactly how big and what to do. Figure out the pricing, because I have to nail down pricing before I launch my Kickstarter in 3 weeks.
Yes.
And then begin doing, because one of the biggest problems is when you get to the point where, like, if you do a big Kickstarter and you're taking in money, you're pricing things, you're doing all that stuff, but the book isn't finished yet. You're predicting like, okay, this is going to be a 250-page book, so I'm going to get pricing as if it's a 250-page book. But if you have a stretch goal that's going to add a new chapter, that's going to add to the print cost. Like it's like playing Plinko with your own money. Like, oh shit, I got to make sure this goes right. So it's very challenging to predict. Even like one of the things with Kickstarter is they give you conversion rates for different links, for different, how many people you had when you launched it versus how many of those people bought, how much of this, how much of that. But even then, you're still like guesstimating, okay, well, if I have, when I launched Shadow City, I had about 210 people that were following the Kickstarter page. I should have listened to the Black Lodge guys who told me to put up the page much earlier than I did, but I had things that I didn't feel were ready to be launched at that time. So it was up for a little while. I had 210 people. I had 426 sales at the end. So that's roughly like double. But how could I know if that's going to scale from what's following Shadowsun to how many will sell? So I can look at the conversion rate of the people who were those 210, and I can tell you it's not 200%, right? So I have to figure out, like, okay, how many of these people that are following it? And like, I've advocated for years on Eric Tenkar's podcast when he would do random party generator thing going back for years. I would say, like, the problem that people have is that they assume they're going to be way more successful than they end up being. Mm-hmm. And it's real easy to let that dance in your brain and be like, oh man, I'm gonna make millions of dollars. Odds are not good. Okay. So be very conservative, especially if it's your first product or in your first 5 products or whatever. Like, you really don't know. Like, even right now, I'm fairly well known. We could say, like, I'm not a superstar, but I'm fairly well known. But even then, it's very hard for me to know or predict these things. Like, with that, so if you don't have any data, it's your first project. Like, whoa, shit! Like, be very, very conservative.
Oh yeah, it can take time, even with a very good product. It can take time for word of mouth to spread, especially if you're brand new. but what I was talking about though, with the just on the various methods of distribution side, you are primarily hands off. You are not doing any of the distribution yourself, other than maybe at a convention at some point.
Yeah, I'm not selling books by hand.
Yeah.
I might do, like, with this Kickstarter, it's going to go to a distribution house. So it's gonna come in from the printer overseas. I wish I loved America enough to throw in extra money, but I'm maybe next time. Okay, like right
now, I'll have some suggestions for who to go to. Yeah,
I got a kid to get through high school, so I'm gonna make that. It's gonna come into a distribution. They're gonna say, and then if there's a remainder, that's just going to come to me. And then I might sell those by hand on and off, but then I'm going to hand it off to drive-through anyway. So it will be long-term. I don't want to be a warehouse.
Sure. Because I know Matt obviously does a lot of production and distribution himself, not 100%, because you are also selling hardcovers that you're not producing. Yeah. Do you know about the percentage, Matt?
I definitely sell less hardcovers than the actual box sets. What's funny is, like, I had the hardcovers ready and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this will take some of the load off. Like, people like a hardcover. No, all it did was they went, I'll get a hardcover and a box set, which is a good problem to have, but it just increased the amount of box sets I've had. So I haven't had any dips in those. Now, I think the best thing I've done was learn the limits. So, like, with recently, whenever we did the Portals to Adventure Kickstarter, and then with Barrow Mail, I learned my page limit when it came to binding on booklet size things, which on paper and a heavy duty. In case anybody's thinking about it at home and they have a 150-page booklet that they thought they were going to do, but then also stuff like, I don't make the boxes in-house. I order those from a packaging company in America, and then those get sent to me, but I have to think about, like, minimum orders on that. Like, am I going to sell X number of boxes this year? Therefore, how many do I actually need to order? But like, it's definitely, I'm trying to move more things to outsourcing production to either drive through, or if I can get, like you're talking about, better printers in America that can do stuff like that. That's like, if I was to transfer everything and I was able to, I would do that, and then maybe do, like, limited runs of the self-printing each year. But one of my things that I keep running into is, in the self-publishing, or like self-printing, I guess I should say, I get to play around with the margins a little bit more. I can be a little bit more liberal with my layouts, just because the only person who's going to complain is myself to my own printing, and make sure it doesn't cut off words. But I've also spoken to a few creators, like you were talking about, with comic book companies and stuff like that in the yearbooks. I've been looking into options like that too, but we'll see. It also depends, because when you print at home, it limits what you can actually make. Like, I couldn't make a big hardback right now. I'd have to outsource that. So
you mentioned margins, and earlier Greg mentioned bleed. I know what bleed is from repeated failed attempts to print things on Lulu for myself, because I thought bleed was where you could, like, end your cover. That's not the case. You can't do that. So did someone want to not take a stab, you guys know what it is, but, like, explain what bleed is when you're publishing something or printing something to those that may not know?
Yeah. So bleed is an extra margin. When you think of a piece of paper being printed by a printer, it's a physical process, right? There are little grippers on the side of the page that have to move things through the printer. And you can't print on the part that's being grabbed by these little grabbers, obviously. So there's a little margin. It varies depending on certain factors, but usually it's about 1/8 of an inch. And you can print like stuff that flows out up to a certain point, and then it will get cut. So you print larger than your actual page will be, and then they're going to be chopping this page to fit. They're going to be chopping off. You remember in high school with the chung chung,
Mhm.
Okay, they're going to be slicing it, right? Yeah, I was looking, but I didn't see one, Matt. But yeah, they're going to be slicing that thing, and so if you want there to be solid, like Shadow Dark's layout, for instance, has solid black that goes right up to the edge of the page. You need to have that going out the bleed, right? So when they chop it, it will be that effect you can see right there on the book, right?
Yes.
If you don't make it to the edge of the page, that will all be white.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Another way to think of the bleed is like the printer's margin of error. That's When you get a defective book, 9 times out of 10 it will be it did not get cut properly. Yep.
Right. And even on like I don't know what you would call like the edge bleed or whatever, but like on Shadow Dark, right? Like when you look really closely at it, you can see they don't all line up. Now in the layout, I'm sure they all line pixel perfectly, right? Because you'd have the same like template for everything, but from the little bit of error in trimming and variability.
That went with the old school method of showing you what a bleed
I
is.
see.
Yes.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, pretty much. So I had that was my hard way of figuring out on drive-through, because the bleed on my Black Label B&B game kept going over on a lot of areas, which my own home printing, I can go over those areas, and it was fine, and it never was a problem until I sent it to them. I'm like, oh, I gotta squeeze it in or print a little bit bigger. But yeah.
So Technobabble says he does his at half an inch of bleed because he had issues with the 1/8 inch that drive-through supposedly uses. And I've heard Rob Conley specifically when he was on one of Tenkar's streams, when he was talking about like maps or like things that kind of go across the spread, to leave a 1/4 inch extra offset in the center to account for both bleed and like binding and everything. So that's the extent of what I know about printing. Glad I could contribute.
Okay.
I had to do that on.
The other thing you want to think about when you're with that kind of layout is what stuff is facing each other, because that's going to matter quite a bit for book use. Like here, you've got that gap, and ideally it wouldn't be there.
Yeah, like OSE, right? It's not there.
Yeah.
I wonder how many times it took to get that right.
Probably not the first try.
Probably not.
Yeah. And you're going to get companies that are sloppy as well, as Agile Monk noted, that they're going to make errors that even if the file, if printed correctly, would look the right way, won't, because they're not very precise with their cuts. That does happen, and that's something that I've noticed with at least one of the printers that we've worked with, where we get a fair amount of variance in how they cut the cover, actually, not so much the interior. And so I've done some. When sending stuff to them, I've done some cover design changes specifically for them.
Fair enough. And is that just because the way they're doing like the hardcover case bounds, they're like the way they wrap it over the edges, that's just not consistent? Or
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here, Dan, if I could screen share this.
Sure. I know.
So this is a Tier 5 Psionics in Shadow Sun. I just got this art piece in. Now, right now, since I'm only doing PDF, for at this moment, I'm not sending this to print yet. I have the piece just like this. But if you printed it, you would see that if this was in the middle, it would look like the tail shrunk as it comes across.
Right.
You chop out a middle part, right? So what you need to do is shorten that up, and then make it like this. Okay.
Okay.
Then you're going to move it over so that it will be fatter like that. And when you look at it here in PDF, it looks wrong.
Right, but when you print it, it
So
lines
when
up.
you print it, it will look like it's seamlessly flowing across that boundary.
Yes.
So those are things that you will not generally realize until after you've spent money printing it.
Very cool. Appreciate the live demo.
You'll have the same thing with maps and such as well. Even if it's like a one-page map, you're going to risk getting the edge cut off depending on how precise the printer is compared to what they're telling you that the bleed would be. That's something that we've experienced, and just commission artwork accordingly. Plan that the very edge of the map may not make it if it's a one-page map and you have a sloppy printer.
Yeah. Make sure you're giving yourself space to, even within, if it's a good print, like you'll still have some variations.
You will.
Maybe only a 1/16 of an inch, but it will be enough so that some pages, you want to make sure you're designing it so that no matter how they cut it, it will not look like shit.
So since you mentioned commissioning artwork, this is actually something when I was doing my homework, Roger, I did homework. What are your guys' thoughts on white space in layout? Like, for instance, this is Swords and Wizardry Complete Revised. I love it. But, there's instances in the layout where there will just be like, white space at the end of the spell page here, where you're like, that could be like an art piece.
I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, that seems like wasted space. I'm not an expert or anything, but
I mean, for that kind of thing, I would probably add a couple more spells.
add more
That'd
spells.
be
Yeah.
really weird shape for a piece of artwork,
Right.
especially of a magic effect, other than maybe like a vertical lightning bolt or something.
Yeah.
Like a staff. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really can't think of any more spells, I would try to fill it. I usually, when it comes to getting art, though, I can definitely understand if that was a last minute thing,
Right.
Finding art within that time, especially if you're trying to use like all specific artists, no public domain, anything like that.
Right.
And if you have a limited budget, I mean, I would focus primarily on the cover, on any maps, and on anything that's unique to your game that doesn't exist otherwise. Those are the things that people are going to be able to need to see the most. Not having a piece of artwork for Human Fighter #4 is much less of an issue functionally. People can maybe picture that. Even for a common fantasy race, like if you had to pick between having artwork for elves and having artwork for some boutique thing that you made up, you should pick the boutique thing, because A, you might be able to find stock art for the elf, and B, even if not, you can often rely on your customer to be able to picture what you mean if you mean a fairly classic fantasy elf. Obviously, if you can, by category, like if you have pictures of some of the playable races or species or whatever for your game, you should probably have pictures for all of them. But when it comes to like a bestiary or something, I think having a piece of art for every single creature is not particularly necessary if you plan ahead with the layout and maybe use that space for lore or variants of the monster or additional stat blocks, and in particular if it's a fairly common trope kind of monster.
Yeah, people know what a centaur looks like, but if you have some weird monster that you're inventing,
Right.
that's an important thing. Unless it's an iconic thing, like if you're doing something where dwarves are really like the main race and this and that, you really should invest in dwarves, obviously. But
Yeah, like Oathhammer, for instance.
but most of the time, yeah, I would say go with art on the thing that's hard to get.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I have a question for y'all about efficiency versus style. Now, I'm not going to ask like, oh, what's more important, efficiency or style, but what percentage is efficiency versus style for y'all? Like, is it
In-
50-50 or
Is your goal to sell
70-30?
more units? That
Yes, you
might
still-
not be
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Like there's certain things where you're like, I'm not going to change this because it's an important part of it. Like I don't write anything for 5th edition D&D. It would be very profitable for me to do it. I refuse to do it. I will never do it. Right. So you could say to me, "Oh, Greg, you should do this. It'll make you more money because it's 5th edition." Like that. Yeah. But if your goal is to sell more units, and this is an aspect that you're willing to bend on, then having style is really important. You know, having these things is really important. Yeah, I think it's especially important now that people are used to a very high level of production value.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think I lay somewhere in the like 60-40 because like people have to be able to read it too, but it has to look good nowadays. It just has to. So if you've got like just a wall of text, page after page after page after page with no headers or anything, that will be a turnoff for a lot of customers. Even if it's a really excellent, even if it's the best system ever created or best adventure ever written, if they
But
can't
that's
see
also
it,
just like incredibly bad writing. If you
Well,
don't
yeah, I
bother
mean,
to format your document.
well, I meant more like stylized pages or throwing some art in there to break up text and stuff like that.
Art, tables,
And the way-
sidebars, this kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
You can get a long distance by just study, like Dan is doing right now, looking at other books for examples of stuff.
DCC, by the way.
Yeah.
Sailors of the Starless Sea.
So, I mean, one of the things that I do is read the stuff and look at it and go, I don't like this particular it's easier to eliminate strategies than to find what you want. You know, you can try to find, okay, I don't want a thing that covers the page. Like, here's an example. 2nd edition D&D used a lot of 3-column layout.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Fucking nightmare. Don't
not
ever use 3-column layout.
I brought this out as an example of that.
Now, if
No.
you,
Bad.
don't do that. So if you think about why is this bad? It's not because 3 is bad and 2 is good, right? Like, it's because you want there to be that, white space, for lack of some kind of spatial gaps between the things. You want it so that there's another word we might have to explain to people. Justify. If you have justified text, what that means is it's trying to spread the letters out to match the space of the column. So if you have a narrow column, you're going to have a lot more of these places where it has to spread out the letters, and it creates a kerning is the space between the letters. It creates a kerning problem that looks like shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think about these things before you get to page 284. Like, you need to work this out on like day 1.
And
Like,
generally speaking,
column or 1 column or whatever it is. Yeah.
Generally speaking, not just presentation like Greg's describing, but in readability, 3 or more columns is not going to be readable for most people at a quick rate because there's too much to scan.
Right.
People are much
Scrap
better
by
at scanning a
6-column
1 or a
book
2
idea.
column. And so plan accordingly.
8-column layout is bad, folks.
Yeah, don't do 8-column layout.
I've seen 4. I've seen it. It's terrible. Don't do that either.
The worst is I've ever actually seen is in Ars Magica, where it's got some pages where there's 3 columns and it's just solid. There's not even art on the page. It just makes your brain melt looking at this fucking thing.
Yeah.
Whew.
Now I have a little bit of a weird thing whenever I'm writing, because I also am emulating styles of like the old original D booklet. Yeah. for Barrel, and when I'm doing the supplement, making it older when I'm putting it in there. And so I spend a lot of time balancing, oh, it looks cool and old versus no, I need to put lines on my tables so that people can read it. We had Dan was one of the play testers in Barrowmeal, and that was one of the comments, because early on I didn't have lines or anything separating my tables, and he was like, my eyes.
Yeah.
Please.
I was like, I realized that a lot of your playtesters are in their 20s and Zoomers, but I'm in my 40s and I can't read that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you could this table, but without the lines.
Yeah.
So that was something that you just have to test. Also, getting people to look at your layout before you finalize it will help a lot.
Yeah. Now I use in my books, and I think you guys know this, a mixture of 1 and 2 column layout. 1 column for normal writing, and 2 column for like monster stat blocks and that sort of thing. And I do that because I found that to make for the most readability, and I wanted people to be able to use the game as effectively as possible. And my co-author felt the same way, and we accidentally made stuff that was fairly reader friendly for people with dyslexia, though that was not what we set out to do. We've gotten comments from multiple customers who normally have trouble reading, who commented about how easy our stuff was to read, partly because of the writing, but in a large part because of the layout. And so when you choose to do a more like cramped on the page style without obvious borders, there are going to be some customers who struggle to just use your product, like Matt was describing.
Yeah, I've actually got an example of just that. So this is, no shade, Lairs and Labyrinths. It's quarter shots. It's a book of adventures, but their adventures are laid out like this. And like when I'm looking at this, it's just call out boxes all over the place. And like, I don't know where my eye is supposed to go when I'm looking at this. It's confusing to me. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but something like when you compare this to something like an OSE adventure, right? With, great layout, some bullets, some spacing, some white space to give your eye a break as you're scanning through and looking for things. It's just completely different.
And also when you're going through there and you're making your layout out, especially for adventure modules, which people are meant to be like having at the table, flipping through it while they're trying to run it, think about where you put things like your maps or your tables or monster information, because if I have to spend an hour finding where you put something in the book while I'm trying to run it at the table, that's going to definitely make me question whether I'm going to buy the next adventure. But if you can run an adventure module without having to flip a million times, you're pretty good. Now, there are exceptions to that when you get to, we were talking on before stream about Gods of Forbidden North, where it has so much content. I don't know where he would begin mushing that together in a different layout style, but especially if you're doing
it's like 1,500 pages or something like that.
Yeah,
so, across the 3 books.
Good luck, Rob.
You guys reminded me of one of my pet peeves when you were talking about that stuff. I pulled it up here, Dan, if you could share that. I think many of you are familiar with this book layout.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how it's got a lot of things that are headers that are not at the top of the page?
Yes.
Like Barbarian starts here.
Yeah, I find that annoying also.
Here.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you got nothing is starting at the top of the page. So when you're flipping through as a user and you're looking for the cleric,
mm-hmm.
you eventually start defaulting to the art because you're like, where's this is the druid, because you really can't find the druid title just flipping through. You have to use the art for your eyes on a show.
Right. And if they had done the layout differently, they could have had each of the classes as a header that actually appeared at the top of a page.
Right.
You would be able to find it very easily.
Yeah. That was the 3rd edition player's handbook for those that don't know. Maybe 3.5.
I was 1 year old, so.
You were 1 year old. Singular year.
Man. 1 year old, yeah.
I was
Nah, he couldn't count
graduating
that.
high
It was
school.
years. An Agile Monk. I have, in fact, done exactly that. I see a comment you put in a little bit ago about getting original artwork for 2 books,
This one
all
here.
of which you own, and art directing the creation, and see what that insanity costs. I have a pretty good idea. I know Rob Alderman does too, because he's just done that for 3 or 4 books.
You just need a teenage sister that's really, really good and talented.
Matt's like, beloved family member and or slave labor.
Hey sis, I've got some. You want some
No,
ice
no,
cream?
no. It's 2026. We don't talk about that. It's being forced into service.
Now,
Yeah, we're gonna.
I don't want to monopolize too much of it. I do have another example to show.
I like the demos.
This is a quick start of a Kickstarter that launched recently that I downloaded because I liked a lot of the graphic design elements that they were doing.
I know exactly what this is.
I have not read this at all, really.
Oh, okay. Not what I thought.
So this is an example of how you can spend all of your money. Okay. So every single page that we go through is somebody ordered the art custom for this spread. Okay. So you can see like they're ordering art specifically to fit all of these spaces. They've got, this is a ton of layout costs, like crazy amount of layout costs.
Yes.
Yes. And so it would be very easy for you to go, well, I can just do this. And then by the time you get to page 100, you're out of money. Okay. So like there's just tons and tons of, and like I can do layout at this level myself, but I don't because it is so expensive to do this. Like I looked at this and I was like, oh my God, they must have spent a fortune before they even did the Kickstarter. I mean, like it's amazing art. So if you have a real vision and a giant pot of money, you can do this. But you might do that. You see this tree here? I just noticed this right now. All right, you see this tree?
Yeah.
It's right, the same tree.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so I didn't notice that the first time I went through it, but like, yeah, there's just, it's so easy to spend all of your money in this industry. It really is.
The ones
And-
I envy are the folks that can do their own art.
Yeah.
I wonder if
envy the
layouts like
ones
that
can do-
are like Borg inspired, right? Because Mork Borg has a ton of that.
Yeah.
It's like everything is very artsy and a pain in the ass to read and that sort of thing. But
That is true.
Technobabble's comment there is really good. Yeah, $50 a half page times 30 is 15. It's like the bigger your book gets, the more of this art you put in. Like, and that's a good price.
That's a ridiculously
That's it.
low price, just so
Yeah,
you know.
that's if you can
Yeah.
find somebody at 50 a half page. I've noticed a lot of artists, a lot of smaller artists are teetering in the like 150 for a half
Same,
page.
Agile.
Speak up there, Matt. What was that?
Oh, I say a lot of artists are teetering on like the 150 plus for a half page, depending on who they are or
And
their
whether it's
style.
black and white color, whether or not there's a background or it's just a single piece, like image.
I've definitely paid a good chunk of change for art that was just a little bit, but also because it was very complex. And so, you know, or I don't know. That's why I said earlier, I envy the folks that can do their own art and write. So
Yeah.
like whenever I see Castle Grief stuff, I'm like, oh, I wish. So
Well, one thing, I mean, Castle Grief is good. I
yeah, he's great.
follow him
Yeah.
on Twitter and all that stuff. But one of the things is it's very easy to think, oh, because I do this one thing, I can do everything at that level. And like, know your limitations. If
Yeah.
you really can't do the layout, don't get a subpar layout just because you could do it. If you have the ability to pay someone or learn more or do whatever, you should invest in that.
Yeah.
Don't just assume, oh, okay, I'm an artist, so that means I'm a great writer and I can just write whatever. Like maybe not. Maybe you need to put some skill building in writing.
Yeah.
Very few people are true Renaissance men who can lay on their deathbed like Leonardo da Vinci and write, "My only regret is I didn't do enough." And you're like, what? Like, what are you talking
Well, see,
about?
that's why.
Yeah.
Little shout out to Castle Grief too. He did both of these covers for me. And like I won't give his prices, but like I would consider him a reasonably priced artist in the industry, but you'll be hard pressed to find $50 a half page, and it'd be really good art. Unless you're hiring somebody based on volume, like you've worked out a deal for X number of pages, that sort of thing. That might be a
This will resonate with people who play a lot of video games. So if you don't, then sorry. But there's so many video games, especially turn-based or time flow video games, where you can track the difference in making a decision over a huge amount of time and see massive compounding effects. So like if you start a game of Civilization, I play Civ 6 because 7 blows ass, and you start up a game of Hot Seat with 5 civs and you play all 5 civs and you watch the development of those, the one that had the best start location will come to like dominate versus the other, because those factors will just keep compounding over and over and over and over again. The further out your ability to plan something, the more cost savings that you can get. You can line up an artist to give you a dedicated amount of time for months and months and months and months, instead of trying to commission everything within a 3-month period from a bunch of different artists. Figuring out printing costs, figuring out layout design, everything on a longer time horizon, your savings will compound to the point where you can really make some great advantages over a long distance. But you have to have that prudence, for lack of a better word. It's easy to go, well, I'm done with this, I'm going to shoot it right out the door. Maybe you need to put off this launch for 3 months or 6 months and get all these other things lined up so that you will have a great launch.
That's another thing too, is, I mean, if you're looking at this like, oh, I need to write this book so that I can get the funding I need for it. Like if you are in need of funding, which is the reason for your writing, then you're probably not going to be making the smartest decisions when it comes to your time. So you've got to think about this as like, if you want it to be the best thing, it needs to have time to be done. So
also, if that's the situation, consider making dungeons and modules for games that are currently successful that have an existing customer base to build up an audience to then launch your own. This is in part what Greg has done. This is also what Kelsey Dion did. She wrote a bunch of stuff for 5th edition, right, which is how I heard of her originally, and then eventually made and launched her own game. And this took her, a couple of years of saving and spending her own money, getting specific pieces for her core book. So it's something that you can do, but if you're trying to generate revenue and practice writing and get better at writing and layout and this kind of thing, make content for other people's games. Don't release a game, would be my advice. I did do the opposite, but my business partner and I were not in the position of needing the money up front. We had enough to produce our own game out of pocket to then spend a couple years selling it.
Yes. You stocked up on water and then you're going over the long distance.
Yeah.
So Ark has an interesting question here. I feel like if I ever published a book, I'd have to get all the writing and layout done, then commission art so I don't have to have blank spaces and I commission what I need.
Yes. Rob Alderman has talked about how he wasted over $10,000. I forget exactly how much he said he thought he could have saved if he had been more able to predict the art positioning and flow. And it was his first project, and he was openly, about, hey, it's a learning experience. But it is a learning experience. So start with something that's 20 pages, not 200, and maybe 5 pages, even, something simple. And everybody's like, oh yeah, I can write better than Wizards of the Coast. That may be true, but Wizards of the Coast has all kinds of institutional knowledge that you do not have. And they have money and they have time that you don't have. It's all kinds of things.
Also, there's a big difference between writing something for yourself, right? Like we've all written adventures to run at tables and stuff, but mine's like, a few notes on like a bar napkin and maybe like a rough idea. But writing for other people is a completely different animal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I went through Shadow Sun a lot today and yesterday from an editing perspective, because I've made some changes to several things, and I'm going to be updating the quick start version that's up there. But before I can update the quick start version, I have to go through all of the full versions and make all the changes there first, so I don't do double work. See, so there's all kinds of things that you don't think about. Like you write a list of 20 things, and it's a D20 table, and it's got a sentence there. And some of the sentences you ended with a period, and some of them you didn't put a period on the end. So you have to go through 200 pages and make sure that whichever strategy you picked is implemented. If you're italicizing every range increment that appears in the text, because otherwise it can kind of sound weird, like,
Yeah.
you kill every near creature. Like that's a range increment. So I'm gonna italicize that. Well, now you have to search your document for every instance of the word near and make sure that it's fucking italicized. It's like, these are the colossal pains in the dick that happen.
Attention
I'm
to
getting
detail.
like an
is
eye
important.
twitch as you're saying that. I'm like, oh yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
The Control F was like my best friend for a few months there.
Which words
Oh,
do
sure.
you have bolded? Which words are hyperlinks? Which words are this? Which words are that? Like, oh man, I changed the mechanic for my overland travel from an exhaustion mechanic to a vitality mechanic. Exhaustion was something that was accumulating negatively, and vitality was an amount that you were like energized at the beginning of the day and it depleted. It's easier to keep track of the vitality side than the accumulating side. But now I have to go through and search for every time I ever reference the exhaustion mechanic and make sure that it makes sense, because I don't want it to be a +2 to exhaustion when it needs to be -2 to vitality, right?
Of course.
So you have to go through those kinds of things. Is crazy.
But
so many little things like that.
But we had a question earlier I wanted to get to. It has gotten off the stream,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I can get it.
But it was something along the line, a comment or a question about if I ever write my own book, I'm going to have to spend a bunch of money on art to kind of make up blank spaces. What you should do is plan ahead your layout, like we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, the last time we spoke.
Was it this one,
and-
Todd?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And that you so that you actually know where all the artwork is going to be and exactly how much space you have to write. And then make your writing fit the space in your layout.
Yeah.
And that every once in a while, you might need like one more piece of art. But if you do that and you stick with it and you make your writing fit in the space you actually have available on the page up front, then it will not cost you nearly as much. And that is what Rob was talking about a bit too, that he wound up spending significantly more than he would have needed to with that kind of pre-planning that he did in later work.
Yep. And I guarantee you that 3rd edition layout that I put up earlier, they had multiple people working on it in Microsoft Word, and they didn't know how it would fit into the layout until they gave all of those Word documents to a layout artist who then put it in there. So the layout artist, to their credit, made it workable, like considering the situation. But it's not the layout artist's fault.
Right.
He he got the order. You know, that the private on the front lines isn't responsible for the situation of the war. Like,
Right.
this guy was doing his best, but you know, the downstream effect of writing things in Word, like we were talking about last time, like you can write it outside of layout, but it will mean when you go into layout, you will have to then make a ton of adjustments. And
Well-
yeah, it'll be much more stressful that way. If you just write it in layout, it will be, okay, I need this to be 2 paragraphs long. And then you write it to be 2 paragraphs.
Well, and I've learned a lot from, sorry, Matt, from your Patreon, Greg. Just because, like, while you were developing Shadowstone, like, you would post a spread, right? Like, while it was a work in progress, and you'd have, like, you know, whatever the procedure was and how it was laid out, but you'd have these blocks, like, you know, space for quarter page art to be commissioned, or like something like that, right? As you were,
Yeah.
So that was. I've never considered writing something in layout, and the one time I tried to teach myself Affinity for something, I wanted to punch my monitor. So, but you know, it was good. It was awesome to see and like learn and see the behind the scenes stuff. Shout out Greg's Patreon.
Thank you.
So I write in layout whenever I'm doing my actual going to book writing, but a lot of times I do my notes with pen and paper or in Obsidian. So a lot of times I will type it out as just big long word blocks and then go in and do my final writing in layout, because a lot of times, I mean, all that mess is weird anyway. But which I don't know if that's also like a similar thing for you. Are you doing like your first draft in layout, or are you like, is everything in layout for you, Chubby? Or
Everything is in layout.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
The only time it's not in layout is when it's an outline on my phone.
Okay, so maybe that's what I'm referring to, is like I'll do outline stuff, because I do a lot of writing on the go also, like out on index cards whenever I'm at the grocery store, or I have to pull over my car because I thought of something and I have to write it down on an index card. Like I've got where'd it go? This right here is my next dungeon module. So, and I still have to go through all of this and pull things out. But like, for example, this is room 1 of level 1. And
That's cool.
I put those in my pocket, or I'll take a stack of them in my pocket and fill them out as I go. But that's not like, I don't know, I wouldn't recommend people go do that. That's just what's easiest for me to get the idea.
Yeah, I do some handwritten notes as well, but that's like kind of pre-planning, kind of like Greg's notes in his phone. That's not
Right.
That's not the actual work. That's thinking ahead about what to do.
Yeah.
And then once you hit a certain point where you're actually like, okay, now I need to execute this, then you're actually doing it.
When I'm at that
So
point, I do all that writing in layout.
I shared with you this morning a couple of Google Docs. That's typically what I start working in. But if you look at those carefully, you'll see that there's blocked out spaces for artwork. And that's because I'm going to use the same kind of font, the same like height on the page. And so even though I'm using Google Docs in that case, and I'm not in Affinity, so I can share it with people easily and stuff, and work on it live with Nader and that kind of thing, we actually have built in what is going to be required in Affinity on that exact same page. And I can show you how to do that sometime if you want, but it saves time and money to do it that way. And the only reason I suspect that Greg doesn't do it that way is he's writing solo. And if I was writing solo, I might do the same as him.
I got many report cards in elementary school that said does not work well with others.
I got the same report card. It's funny.
That's the way it is. You know, I don't take orders from people. If you tell me not to do something, it makes me want to do it. That's just how it is. I can't help it. I wish I could be more of a team player, but
I bet you could on the right project. I bet if you did a project that was themed had two opposing themes, like a light and dark, a fire and ice type thing, I bet for that kind of project you could do.
I would be motivated to write better than the other person.
Yes, yes, you would.
Well, I usually do all my own writing, but I've noticed there are a couple people out there in the world that I feel comfortable writing with, but that's just because we are so similar that we agree on everything. So I never have to have them go up against whatever I thought worked better. But
So what you're saying is you like to bully people? Is that what I'm hearing?
okay, yeah, no, I mean, I get pretty set in it being a certain way whenever it comes to the writing in my modules and stuff.
Well, this is an example for the Arcanist. Okay, so I have a bunch of treasure stuff that's left to do on Shadowsun. There's a lot of them where I'm like, I don't know if this is a 1-page thing or a 2-page thing or whatever, but I still have something in the layout that when I have an idea for it, I can go put it in there. So like Shadowsun is going to have oils and powders that are going to work like a lot of the random magic item creation in Shadowdark Core. So you're going to roll for properties of it. You're going to roll for a curse. You're going to roll for a benefit. So I can create in the treasure table, make a powder with only 2 curses on it, which means it'll be like a deadly blowing shit up powder. And then I can say, make a powder with positive things, and it'll be something that, powder of disappearance that'll help you turn invisible or whatever, right? I don't know how much space I was going to put up, but I put one spread in the layout with a header that said oils and a header that said powder. And then every time I have an idea of, it would be cool if I had a powder that did, I'll go write that down into the layout. Yeah. And then eventually you get to the end where you polish it up and, okay, this is done now. But the putting it in there is, what if you get a piece of stock art and you're like, I really like this stock art. It looks like a great bottle of oil for a magic item that's an oil flask. Then you put that stock art on the page where it is and go, okay, well then we need to find some way to incorporate this art into however I write this page. Because the alternative is you get that 3rd edition D&D layout where you're shoving everything into the place that it fits, and it fits at the end of the day, but it just looks like ass. And that's the price you have to pay for those things.
No,
you have art.
We had one comment roll off screen again.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. What did you say?
We had one comment roll off the screen again. What was the one right before Agile Monk, I think?
Was it this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was next on my list.
Work on it. That's my first response. That's the job that we're doing, is we're taking, when you're writing and publishing role-playing games, you're taking hard things to describe and making them described. That's the job.
Also, ask for help. Sometimes somebody else will be able to look at your work and give you tips for how to make it much more efficient or much cleaner for somebody else to read. And this is something that I don't just recommend for role-playing games. But yes, experience will help. But like when I was doing reports that had to hold up in court, I would be, after I wrote the report, having one of my coworkers read it out loud to me because I knew what it was supposed to say. And so if there was a typo and he read it out loud, I'd catch the typo that way. But also, I had to make sure somebody else understood what it meant who wasn't there for the incident. And so that really helped, just that simple kind of process, increase the clarity and reduce the errors in even just reports about different crimes and stuff. And the same thing applies, I think, with role-playing game writing. It's very difficult to be your own editor, or if you're running into a problem where people aren't understanding your writing, you should ask someone, well, what would make this understandable?
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to correct your own mistakes because your brain will just kind of auto-correct it.
You should.
Yeah.
You should also read out loud back to yourself what you wrote.
Yeah, I do that at work for writing functional and technical design documents that I have to give to clients.
That was something I didn't learn that till later. Actually, funny enough, mutual friend Baron was the one that when we were reading some stuff that I was writing up for Boogaloo, it was what he was telling me to do, was to go back and reread it out loud, the entire book. that changed half the writing just by doing that, because I was like, ooh, that felt weird to say. It sounded right in my head, but to say it out loud, I didn't understand it. So
Yeah.
that does wonders. But other people doing that and you doing that, I think you'll go quite a long way, because you can learn writing. You can learn how to write for people, and like you said, human consumption. That's not something you're just born with. Some people have a natural talent, but a lot of this is skill that can be picked up as you do it.
And also just read a
lot.
lot.
Reach a certain age, they can become test dummies in your crash chamber. So you give them a piece of paper and it's a 12-year-old, and you're like, does this make sense to you? And they're like, I have no idea what's happening. Then it's probably too hard. You need to simplify it down.
Yeah, and like I said, read a lot. Read well-known authors, not ones who have a flash in the pan in like New York Times or whatever. I mean, somebody whose book has been getting read for 50 years or 100 years or 30 years. Read those guys or read those women, because there's a reason their book stayed popular. And it's usually because the writing wasn't absolutely trash. It's usually because the writing was good. And often the story was good, or whatever it might be.
That's not true in role-playing game writing. It's definitely true in book writing.
That's what I mean, novels and such.
Yeah. I was thinking of a particular example I'm going to look up, and I'm going to read it out loud. And I want you guys to tell me if you can understand what it says. Where is this?
Yes, old RPGs is not where to learn how to read.
Yeah, RPGs is not it. I'll find it while you guys talk.
I disagree. But no, I do agree. Reading is good. Read your Appendix N.
Yeah.
I remember when we had, it was Ultra American TTRPG, we were running Empire Petal Throne, and I think he was about ready to throttle me trying to read with the layout of that book. And because it's written almost like legal document stuff, Empire Petal Throne is. And I really do think that he hated me halfway through that game just because of finding stuff in that thing. But.
All right, so I found it. Okay, this is from a very, very popular role-playing game that's well known. All right, I want you to tell me what it means. All right, when a player says that her character does something listed as a move, that's when she rolls, and that's the only time she does. The rules for moves is to do it. In order for it to be a move and the player to roll dice, the character has to do something that counts as a move, and whenever the character does something that counts as a move, it's the move and the player rolls dice.
The person who wrote that is very bad at writing.
Did everybody follow along with that? You got it? You know
something about rolling dice and moving, and
so
what might be a move.
A feedback loop, and it sounded like a combat move.
Yes, it is from Apocalypse World.
That was the writing equivalent of when I'm reading a novel and I'm getting tired and I accidentally read the same line twice. That's what that was.
Exactly what it felt like.
It was.
It was crazy. I was trying to keep up a speed so that I wouldn't actually loop myself in the thing, and I was following it properly. Because if I talked too slowly, it was going to start looping around even worse than it was.
Yes, Woo. that is the writing equivalent of talking to somebody who was blackout drunk.
So then, guys, when you start combat, you gotta move, but you gotta like say that you're moving, and then you do some dice or whatever. But you gotta move first, and then you can.
So the RPG dice. Was written at 2 a.m. at North Texas RPG Con in the bar.
Oh
yeah.
The person who wrote Apocalypse World was sitting there going, "Oh no, they just won't stop."
Yeah, I would read you more, but like it's like brain damaging to read. Like people were like, "This is the greatest role playing game." I picked it up and I'm like, "Whoa, this is not written."
So yeah, kids are cruel and nitpicky. But
but see, in this case, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it better coming from your kids than random strangers who spent money on your product?
That's right.
Yeah, they'll be more forgiving.
Your kids generally want you to do a good job. So if they're being cruel and nitpicky, it's because they're honest. So, a buddy might be cruel and nitpicky just because he's mad that you're writing and he's not.
That is a good point. That just like when you're trying to lose weight, other people who aren't losing weight will be secretly upset that you're trying to lose weight. If you're doing something and it's working or you're producing less stuff, there will be some negative pushback from slackers.
Mhm.
That's just a part of life.
Yeah. And they might not even mean to do it. It could be totally subconscious. But you'll get friends like that. So
Now-
I think, who was it that said that, like, the only person who ever truly want you to do better than them is your dad, and that's about it? Was that what was his name?
Not all dads, but yes, I know what you mean.
Generally, that's going to be the
Yeah,
one person who
generally.
wants you to do
I don't-
better
I
than
don't-
he does.
I don't think that's true. I think that good friends will want you to do better than you did before.
Yeah, but
whether
they
or
don't.
not
Good friends don't
that's
necessarily want you
related
to be
to how-
better than them, than
Well,
themselves.
no, whether or not that doesn't even have to be related to how they're doing, because you may not be even competing. Like
yeah.
Greg and I might be competing in the RPG space. That could be true. It isn't really, because we're not
No,
mostly
it's not
writing
really.
in the same area, right?
Mm.
But let's say that was true. That doesn't mean I don't want Greg to succeed. In fact,
Well, that's
I want
true.
him to double, triple, quadruple his sales. Why? Because if he gets big enough, he can hire me. But also because it's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Because people will buy more than one of the same sort of product. They'll buy more than one dungeon module. They'll buy more than one fantasy RPG. So the fact that someone else is succeeding does not mean you're like losing something. And the same is true when it comes to areas where you aren't even vaguely in the same area. Like when you and I, Greg, not too much, but when we've talked about your workplace, I want you to succeed in your day job. I want it to go well. I'm in no way affiliated with or competing with it, right?
Well,
Like that's
yeah. I mean, I want it to go well also. Not as well as I want my hobby work to go, but yes.
Yeah. And so I think that isn't true, Matt, unless it comes to something where you are directly competing, then maybe.
Well, I meant it more in the way of you can't just take everybody's first opinion on something right off the gate.
That's true.
Because because you don't know if they're looking at it like you were saying, jealousy, or if they actually do care about you succeeding. So
And there could be a matter of taste. I just revised my travel rules, like I said a second ago, and a lot of it was inspired from running Dolmenwood and Gods of the Forbidden North, and saying doing these things works and doing these other things just doesn't work. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't add to the game, whatever, having every single person make a check to see whether they sleep through the night was not as good as us just saying you need to get up to this much amount of firewood in the Dolmenwood system and then you're good. We don't need, because everybody checking to see if they get screwed feels like a shit experience every night. Roll to see if you're screwed every night. It's not really fun. But so I worked out a system and I put it together. I adapted it to OSC and I adapted it to Shadowdark with Shadow Sun. And I sent it out to some people for feedback. And one of the guys came back and he was like, well, I don't really like to be tracking these things. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not really, if you don't want to, if you just want to get to the end of the day and be like, and it's the next day, then okay, we have different goals. It's not like your feedback is not going to be like, okay, maybe I'm wrong about the whole way I'm playing brawling RPGs. There's a certain amount of discernment you have to put into taking feedback. Yeah.
Well, and you're looking at so when I'm getting playtesters, and Nate and I do quite a lot of playtesting, relatively speaking to the size of our company or to our number of products. We do quite extensive playtesting. But when we do that, we're bearing in mind who the playtester is. Is this another game designer? Is this someone who's ever played RPGs before? Is this someone who's played anything we've made before? Because the feedback is going to be colored by their experience and level of knowledge. Like if we have someone who's never played an RPG before, who sits down and plays our game for the very first time in playtesting and has a great experience, that's wonderful. But their feedback about technical rules questions is almost certainly going to be not helpful.
Correct.
Unless it's just, I don't understand this. And as compared to somebody who has played one of our games for a couple of years or more, their feedback may be more specific about rules, may be more useful, but also it's going to be colored by more strongly by like their own preferences. Like maybe there was a version of a rule you tried that they really like, and they want to go back to that rule. That's something you have to kind of watch for. Just bear in mind. And so you want a variety of different experience levels in a playtest group to get useful feedback at scale.
Excellent.
Otherwise, yeah, you're going to get a kind of a feedback loop of bias over time if it's just the exact same group testing.
So a good little sub-thread going on in the chat about competing with yourself that Agile brought up.
Yeah.
I feel like that's almost the only thing that I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that the main difference between me and you guys is that you are kind of focused on, like, I don't want to say one thing, like, but like there's a particular thing that you guys like. It's, you know, the way Matt runs his games on the Discord server, the way the tactical nature of Dropship and Horde Wars compared to some other games. Like you guys have a particular thing that you're into, and that's what you're doing. And I am more interested in the settings a lot of time than the particular game mechanics of the thing. So I'm more flexible on this in that sense. But I think all of us have like a platonic ideal in our head of this is what I think is the ideal experience. And that's what we're moving towards. I see the little kitty cat. And
Cat
so
tax.
we're trying to get to that platonic ideal. And I don't think anyone's platonic ideal is somebody else's system that's already developed out there that we're just trying to make a perfect copy of, right? So we're trying to get to, so in that sense, like, even if Dan thinks Hyperborea is the best thing available, right? It's not the best thing in the universe from now until the end of time, right? You could improve on it. So that's what Dan should be competing to make if he was going to start making things, not a perfect copy of Hyperborea called Dan Burborea or something, you know, like, that would be shitty.
Dan Boria.
There, that's what we're working towards, you know.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I come from film and TV background because that's what I worked in for a few years, and I remember whenever I was doing script writing, that was what somebody told me was if you are not better than you were last year in your writing, then that means you went a whole year without improving. So, not necessarily that what you wrote before was trash, but that you should, if you're doing it this much, be improving over time.
Oh, yeah.
But I would definitely play Dan Boria.
Well, thanks, Matt. I mean, it's the same thing. Like I've looked back at my old code and be like, what the hell was I thinking when I wrote that? Every now and again, I'll be like, oh, that was pretty good, but that doesn't happen very often. Normally, it's the hell was I doing? So,
Yeah, a lot of times, if you get the chance to go back and do a revision, like Greg is doing here and there are definitely things that you're like, oh, I've got a better way to say this now, or I've got a better rule in mind than I did this first time. Or for Dan's coding, I know a more efficient way to write that. That was a really dumb way to that happens.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen because we're imperfect and because our skills often improve over time.
And you make some decisions based on capacity, not skill level. So, like, I didn't have the money or the kind of scope in terms of art budget or time or whatever on Shadow Sun Original to do the map at the level that I wanted, to do the artwork at the level that I wanted. So now I do. So whenever you're making something, keep in mind, you know, this isn't the last thing you're ever going to make unless you're very unlucky. But you're going to have a chance to do other things. Get what you can get done, and then do more things. Like, don't sit there waiting forever. I would rag on Joe the lawyer for years and years because he would just always be talking about something that would end up never getting published. I'm like, why are we even talking about this if you're not going to wrap it up? Publish your thing. Like, what? I don't want to hear about your idea. I want to see the thing written down. Yeah.
Now, when we were talking earlier about commissioning artwork and pricing, just so you guys know, if you're listening to this and you're looking at producing your own product, color artwork's always going to be more expensive, all else being equal, even from like the exact same artist as you'd hired to do black and white, for example. Individual object artwork is typically going to be cheaper than something with a background or with multiple characters or monsters or whatever. And the bigger the piece of artwork, typically the more expensive it's going to be. So a quarter page is going to be less than a half page, which is going to be less than a full page. And typically you're going to want to invest quite a bit in your cover art, because bear in mind, and in a map, because bear in mind, you may want poster size versions of it. So you probably don't want it just made to exactly fit on the cover scale wise. You actually probably want it scaled larger, or made in a vector format so that you can scale it larger. Those are things to consider, but they're so if you are on a limited budget, black and white artwork is a good idea, though you're going to want to still invest in a good cover. And it would, unless you find someone who has never done commissioned artwork, in which case, a lower price may be appropriate because you don't know how skilled they are, and they really don't either. They haven't done professional work. Don't be surprised if you're paying, depending on the details I just mentioned, somewhere between $100 and $600 per piece. You might get a bit lower, you might get a bit higher, might even be double for a really good piece of cover art. But that shouldn't shock you, and you should kind of plan around that. I know Rob has had similar pricing. Pretty sure that you have too, Greg, from our previous conversations, where that's a fairly accurate range. Matt, how about you?
That's pretty accurate. I've spoken to people. I have not paid this, but I have spoken to people that have paid in the multiple thousands of dollars range for cover arts.
Yes.
Totally have talked. I've never been able to afford that, but it's not unreasonable to think, especially if you have like a very successful named artist doing the cover.
Right.
So,
There's also art direction is a skill. Most people do not have it. Okay, this is just Earth. In the same way that I bet all four of us on this call are not architects, right? So we wouldn't say, I can just build this house, no problem. You probably need to be cautious about that. And you also don't want to go hire an architect and just go, build me a house. It should be green. Okay. Like you need to provide the architect with guidance on what you want from them. So when you commission art, you need to be very descriptive in a way that isn't a straitjacket for the artist. So don't go at them with all sorts of very specific things that you want, but go at them with something for when they need to make decisions. So like I'm doing this Shadow Sun stuff. It has the same kind of technology as Dark Sun. I have to say things like no metal. Everything needs to be shells or bone or string or leather or this or that. Like I have a whole list of all these things that they can use, but not metal, right? Wizards of the Coast didn't do that when they commissioned Dark Sun 2027 art. And so a lot of it came back with metal because they're idiots. See? So that you gotta think these things out, because once the artist draws the first sketches, the longer it goes before you figure out it's time and money of going back and forth with edits. If that, at a certain point, the artist might go, you've made so many edits, I'm going to need a little bit more on this piece. I've put in a lot of extra time. That does happen. So try to come with a very specific idea and look up on the internet how to do art direction, how to give descriptions to artists, what to say, what not to say. It's all researchable. But if you just send an artist a note that says, hey, I need a picture of a dwarf, the thing that they send back is not going to be what you think in your mind was going to happen. You need to say, I need a dwarf. I want him to be standing like that. I keep a whole folder of pictures. I love Kingdom Come Deliverance, the video game. And the loading screens have these amazing paintings where there's like a guy stabbing in and the other guy's got his sword over the shield coming in. And you can just send that and be like, this is kind of how I want the figures to be positioned in this piece. Now, that's going to be like an elf fighting an undead or something, but these are the way I want them to be holding their weapons and stuff like that, because the artist will use that as a way of helping them visualize what it is. If you look at, there's a lot of artists that have live streams on YouTube where they're doing art live. You can see they'll bring in a reference picture and they'll be like, okay, so the beak of an eagle is like this, so I'm going to draw this like that. And they'll do it. Just watch them do it. But that's time you have to invest in it yourself, just like you have to invest in learning how to do layout or learning how to load your PDFs into DriveThru RPGs so your bleed doesn't get fucked up. There's more time for you.
And also, for certain pieces, especially if it's a subject matter that you're not familiar with or committed to, sometimes giving the artist the freedom to make certain choices can be good.
Yes.
So, for example, the Horned Lord in Horde Wars, his weapon is not the weapon we originally planned for him, and it's because the artist went, I think this is going to look better. I think you should do a glaive, not a normal sword. And she was right. It did look better. And so we went with that and actually changed the stat block to match. And so sometimes there's going to be good feedback like that. We had 2 pieces we did for Dropship as well, where we deliberately did not finalize the stat block until we had the art back, because there were a couple of choices we actually wanted the artists to make, what they thought would look cooler.
I have definitely, it's a little bit easier for me to talk to because my main artist is my sister, so I can look at her and we are on the same wavelength a lot of time on art direction. But a lot of times I will send her variations of compositions and have her pick which one she thinks is going to be the best, and or the thing that she's most excited to draw out of what I just sent her. Like when I did Barrow Mail, I sent her like 3 or 4 different possible cover write-ups of what it could be, and then she immediately was like, Undead Army, I want to draw that. And she was all excited to do it rather than trying to squeeze in something I had with Vikings, but it's okay. She was right. It was better.
So I actually had an art direction question. When you're designing a product, when you know you're going to have a bunch of different artists that you have to commission, like how much value or stake do you put into making sure that they're stylistically similar or unique and like different from each other? Because like as an example,
create a page where create a page, maybe a full spread with a bunch of stock art in it that you already have that fits the style that you're talking about, or examples. If you don't already have, like, this is your first time commissioning full color saturated art or whatever, then put some examples in there and be like, this is what it needs to be, and choose the artists that fit that style, right? So there's several artists in the OSR sphere who draw art where the characters have a little bit of a cartoonish edge to them. Carlos Castillo is coming to mind. Some of his stuff, his pieces that are in Gods of Forbidden North, they're getting attacked by a thing, and it's funny that the guy has this cartoony expression of getting, killed by a ooze or something, right? But if you're making a thing where everybody is serious, and then on one page there's this cartoony character that looks really weird, it will be jarring. It will stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I was just gonna say that when I used to do VFX and CGI work, one of the advices back then was don't make water bark. So if you have an artist that has a specific style that they do very well and other styles that they don't necessarily do as well, or if you have like a composition that doesn't make sense, like in terms of CGI, it was don't make water move in a way that water wouldn't move. Don't make it bark. It's just sort of the same concept there. If you've got somebody that does really funny art like that, well, maybe you get someone different to do the really serious pieces if that's not their normal style.
One of the things you can also do is hire an artist initially to do some of the perhaps the cover art, some of the like logos, and some of the to basically a few pieces to help establish a style, and use that as part of the board that Greg described when talking with the other artists, going, "Hey, this is what the cover is going to look like. Here's what a couple of other pieces are going to look like. I'd like you to try to match that style, and obviously approach artists who are able to draw or inclined to draw in that way." Another thing, though, that you can do that I think is wise if you're going to be dealing with multiple artists, and I've had 7 artists on 2 different books, and they weren't all the same people on those 2 books, and I forget for the other book. The other book we maybe had 3. So I've had multiple artists on a few projects, but the other thing is you can split them up by category. So, for example, if you have art of people, of player characters of different sorts, and you stick with 1 or 2 artists there and have different artists doing like monster art or different artists doing like maps, the differences in their style, you're still going to want to have central references, but the differences in their styles won't be as apparent because the subject matter is different.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you could have them in different sections. Like if you have a person doing art in the treasure section and another person is doing art in the front of the book somewhere, if it's far enough apart, it will be less of an effect.
Yeah.
But with PDFs now, people are jumping around a lot.
Yeah.
And you should consider that, like, there's a handful of pieces that are in my player guide that I ended up using in the GM guide as well for a different spot, but they're in 2 different books, so it's the same art, but in 2 different books. I have a Van Richten's 2nd edition AD&D book that has, I think it's like 7 pieces of art in the whole book, and they're just repeating as you go through. Like you flip through, and it's like, oh, there's a skull, and then there's the vampire guy, and then there's a vampire hunter, and then there's a skull, and then there's a lantern, and then there's a skull. And you're like, wait a minute, I've seen that a whole bunch of times. So yeah, be cautious about that kind of thing. But really, a lot of it is choosing the artists. It's very hard to do. It requires you to look at. It's late in the stream. Maybe no artists will hear me, but artists are generally very opinionated and passionate people. So if you befriend them on Facebook, you will be inundated with their ideas. Okay. Now, if you can take it, that's good. Okay. I can take it. I just close, whatever. Okay, that's fine. But if you can't take it, you really cannot say your true feelings about anything around most artists, because they are so passionate about it. It could be anything. It could be like it could be about fucking trains. Okay, like who knows? Like they are so passionate about that. And if you're like, I don't really, they're like, it's.
You're
just
telling me you
way-
like you don't like hardwood floors? Are you kidding me? You know,
Exactly.
Pineapple on pizza.
It could be that they're vegan. That's an example, right? It could be that they are really passionate about some food, like anything. Just exercise caution.
I
He is
can't
not
believe
wrong.
you drink. I can't believe you drink milk. How could
Yeah.
you?
And
Exactly.
but the other thing to do is do not hire random people without references.
Correct.
If you start looking for artists and that becomes known, certainly on the internet, you're going to get an awful lot of messages that are scams.
Oh man, but hang on. I'm taking emergency commissions because XYZ family member.
Yeah, scams. So
Yeah.
don't do that. Instead, it would be better to ask other people who are currently designing games or who have commissioned artwork who they've worked with that went well.
Yeah.
Because in many cases, not always, but in many cases, if we worked with an artist before, we'll have some idea when that artist is available and how reliable they are and how long it takes for something to get done and this sort of stuff. It would be that is the best way, is to get references from people who have already worked with the artist.
Yeah. Or if you pick somebody who has like a bunch of stock, like Dean Spencer or Rich Hershey or Eric Lofgren. If you go on drive through, you see they have a ton of stuff. They're really heavily, you can rely that person's not going to take your money and run off into the distance. Probably. It still happens. That you'll still get into a situation where you've ordered something from somebody and it's like a month overdue, and you see them making a post on Facebook about how they need more commissions, and you want to just strangle that person. But this is part of the deal. Like I said, like you just have to tolerate this. That's what artists are like. Okay, Matt, you wanted to duck out?
Yeah, guys, I have a game to run tonight. I know Chubby was recommending I just kill you all before.
No. I told them you'll be 15 minutes. They're all fine with it. I'm on the Discord right now. You're good.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Well, he's already warned them. I guess I'm good.
Yeah, you're fine. But we're on a 10 to 15 minute countdown.
Yes.
Oh,
we go for
well,
about
then
2
there we
Final
go.
countdown.
Perfect. You have more of me. Dan saved the day.
Yep.
I bet he told my player. I bet he promised extra XP or something that I'm not. Gonna get
Actually, I said that if you don't wait patiently, you'll kill all their characters and there won't be a game anyway.
That's good answer. Oh man.
We did have a very important question from Arc the Arcanist in chat that I feel is very critical that we get to. What is the appropriate ratio of chainmail bikini to other art in any product? My opinion is 2 to 1.
Yeah.
That'll be my future game.
Sex does sell when it comes to art.
Go ahead, man.
That was it. That was the whole comment.
I think it's important to consider. First off, do what you want. I'm not judging anybody for anything, but it's important to consider. More people will be turned off by certain things than will be tuned in by those same things. If you have this is true of any kind of media. Like if you make a YouTube video that has a very strong opinion on a particular thing, you will upset a lot of people, and you can only hope that you will get as many people who were not upset who follow into it. Like this is the balance of it. And James Raggi is a great example of, you can go really extreme and you can have a lot of stuff that it's very spicy, and you're like, yes, come get my game if you like spicy stuff. And you will pay a price for that, and it will create pains in your dick. It will happen. There'll be people that cause problems for you. You'll have problems with drive-through if you get too bad. There's all kinds of things like that. There's a lot of people who, it's not that they're prudish, but that they have children. If I'm playing a game with 15-year-olds, that's going to be different standard than if I'm playing a game with 9-year-olds. I can't pull out Lamentations of the Flame Princess with a 9-year-old table. Like that's just not smart.
And so part of it is thinking about your audience. Part of it is also thinking about the genre. Sword and sorcery, chainmail bikini is going to be significantly more appropriate for the genre than if you are doing like medieval fantasy. Why? Because in actual medieval fantasy, that would be like a retard's armor. No one would wear armor that shape. That will just get you killed. That's like, think about what the genre is and what the expectations are, and also do think about your own your reputation for your company. For example, I talked with someone recently who ran into a situation where a product he produced has had a lot of pushback on it because of one of the artists he chose to hire, because that artist also does pornographic work, and that was a mistake and is costing him, it sounds like, thousands of dollars in lost sales and interest. Now, whatever you may feel on the topic, I don't think that's a good thing to do, pornography, right? But whatever you may feel on the topic, you have to think about, if you're making a product, business decisions. Is this a thing that's going to benefit us as a company? And also, is this a morally right thing to do? Because if it's not right, you shouldn't do it. If it's a bad business decision, you also shouldn't do it.
If you're going to spend 9 months, 12 months out of your life working on a particular project, or more than that, you don't want to screw it up by making a decision that is bad for the business side. That's true of chainmail bikinis. That's true of a whole wide range of things. There's a joke about, if you want to make $1 million in role-playing games, start with 2. It's just, people lose huge amounts of money making bad business decisions because they're an artist or a writer and they don't think about the business side of things. But if you're putting together a project with thousands of customers, it is a business, and you need to think about it as a business.
Yep. A very, very smart and now very, very rich man in 1990 once famously said, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Don't polarize half your audience. Not that I sell things, but I do management consulting, so I can at least talk to that a little bit.
Yeah.
But
again, unless it's the genre.
If that's what you're aiming to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
if you're in sword and sorcery, then yes, lean into it.
Yeah.
If you're writing a book about crusaders, you should probably lean into that. It's what your book's about. Just like if you were writing a book about zombies, though they're significantly less polarizing. Do that. But don't add additional stuff that's going to create problems for you.
Yeah, and don't take unforced errors. If you don't have to say something, just let it go. You don't need to put your opinions on blonde people in the book. Like you don't have to talk about what kind of people you find repulsive or stupid. That doesn't help you. It does not help you. Yeah. Unless they were Wizards of the Coast or White Wolf or Paizo.
Right.
Then
what's the old adage? If you got nothing nice to say, don't say anything.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And plus, it often is a waste of space. Like, actually, I recently purchased a book that uses something like 1/10 of its space on exactly that kind of thing. Not that all of what it says is bad. Or even going to create problems for them, but it literally is not the game. It's just their opinions on how games should be or about other topics. I don't care. I don't care what you think about other games. I want to read your game.
Yeah.
And so if you burn 10% of the page count on your feelings about other games, that's not helpful to sell me on your product.
Yeah.
It also isn't very good for random customers. I'm mostly buying it to read for my own interest someone who wants to play your game, you are robbing them of 10% of the potential game content.
Very good advice.
Like, my book's 100 pages. Oh, that's great. How much of that is the actual game? 70. What? Yeah, that's no good. So you want to stick with what you are, what the product actually is.
I'd buy a book with that cover on it, Matt. Just throwing that
Yeah.
out there.
If only y'all could see.
Yeah. The secrets behind the scenes.
Right. But yeah, no, you have to be what's the term? Tasteful in a way for the mass populace generally, because even if you are doing sword and sorcery, if I put something completely horrid on the front cover, that's not really gonna do anything at all other than detract certain
No.
people. Now, like, there is also, like, if your brand or genre is being contrarian, there are people that have done that successfully, but there are fewer people that have done it successfully than there are people that have done it unsuccessfully. So
There's a guy named Condor DM that he
It's like
has,
Beetlejuice. If you say it 3 times, his minions will show
he
up.
has offered some strong opinions and a product that I'll let other people comment on the product. Go on Twitter and just search it up. You'll find all about it. But yeah, it's not a good idea. Don't do that. I think unforced error is the best way to talk about it. Like, just don't. If you don't have to do it, don't do it. Don't wade into a situation you don't need to be in.
Yeah. And, this also applies when it comes to international distribution, by the way. If you are making books that are meant to ship to Europe, you're going to have to be dealing with a bunch of rather onerous censorship laws, including the use of certain symbols. And there isn't a convenient list of which ones are banned. There's just kind of general guidelines. And depending on what printer or distributor that you're using, you could actually just suddenly lose all of your product because you violated an EU law, and it's just gone. Your money's gone. And most of the printers and distributors will give you a little warning text in their terms and conditions if you bother to read it. But that's something to consider too. Where's this product going, and is it going to create problems for me when it arrives? For example, you probably don't want to make a World War II RPG and ship it to Germany.
Yes. And if you do, look at a lot of video games that depict World War II and observe patterns, like that they always use a tricolor flag for Germany, even though Germany at that time was not using a tricolor flag. Stuff like that could save you a lot of pain. And one of my favorite Jordan Peterson observations was that he had all these people picketing and protesting his speeches, and then it just stopped. And somebody said, well, what happened to that? And he said, well, we moved all of the time to 9 a.m. And those people weren't awake. And not only is that hilarious, but you can use this for your own good in terms of the people who hate you generally are bad at reading. So if you put your thoughts into text rather than an image, it will fly under their radar 9 times out of 10 because they don't read anything. Take advantage of your enemy's weakness. If they're very dense and don't read, then put it in writing, not a picture. Yep. Don't put a big banner up advertising what you're doing. Just write it in the book, and they'll never know. It's like invisible ink.
Yeah, this is quite true. This is quite true, and also, it requires more effort typically for them to learn that it's in the product.
That's right. Yes.
And they got to buy it.
Yeah, don't put it in your preview or quick start or whatever. Just
Yeah.
put it in the book.
So
So those are things to consider.
Greg's deepest thoughts about pineapple on pizza will be not in the quick start
Yeah,
to Shadow
it's
Sun
on page
Revised.
36 of.
Yeah.
Well, I have a product called Warlords of Gavardia. That's for Acts 2. And the very last page, the title is Valar Morghulis from Game of Thrones. All men must die. And it has some spicy opinions on it. But nobody has ever brought it up to me because the people who would be very upset about it have never read. They don't read it. They're not going to read all the way to the end. And
Now you're gonna get them. Now you're gonna get them commenting. Now that you've said it on stream, they're like,
Yeah,
"Well,
I don't even know
I
what it
read it. I
says."
was mad all along."
Valar Morghulis, who knows? Who knows what it means? Who knows what it says on that page?
Right. Go
That's
buy
awesome.
it.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you've got links available, Dan. I don't know if Roger shared that stuff with you, but I know that you can get Chubby Funster's things primarily on drive-through, but he's got an upcoming Kickstarter. Do we have a link for that?
I
We-
just dropped it in the chat when you started talking.
Thank you very much. That's
Man,
exactly what
my
that's
hair
for.
is all fucked up tonight after I wore that hat. I never should have done that.
All right.
I still want one of those hats.
My wife set up the Etsy store,
Yeah?
and she's working on getting me a link. It's easy to order hats. It's hard to set up the supply chain for someone else to order hats that have your thing, and then it goes out without being a pain in my ass. So she's worked that out, and that is coming up. Shadow Sun is going to be going live on September 15th. It was originally going to be August 4th, but I moved, and it's moving is a fucking nightmare.
Moving sucks.
Yeah, so I just got behind, but I'm very convinced, and this is rare for me to be around people who I know. Every single person here I know agrees strongly with this. Having the thing written before you try to sell it is really prudent and wise. Nobody talks about that Kickstarter that was 3 years late because the dude wrote it in advance. Okay, that's not a headline.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're following this simple. Follow me for more tips. This is an essential tip.
Yes.
Write
Right
the thing.
before you sell.
Yes, write the thing. Yes, it's not a complicated process.
And then, Matt, do you have anything coming up that there are separate links to or that people should be looking for?
Yeah, you can find most of what I have at barrowsandborderlands.com. Barrow Mail is new. It's fresh, just came out, and I've been getting excellent reviews for it. So it's a warband style game and is compatible with most RPGs if you just want to plug some ideas from it in your own games. I do that all the time by plugging it into B&B. But upcoming stuff, I have the Palace of the Demon Queen, which is being worked on. I showed my index cards earlier. I'll have more announcements about that coming up soon because right now I'm just moving it from index card to file. So, and then it's on to bothering my sister. So, more things not yet to announce, but soon.
I know we're at time, but I'm curious about this, so I don't care.
Go for it.
When you're writing a dungeon specifically, do you make the map before you make all those index cards, or do you make the index cards and then arrange them and be like, this is how the map should work?
It's a little bit of both. So if I have a map in mind or parts of a map in mind already, I will put those down, and then I will be filling in the index card based on what I've already was thinking about being in there. Or there are definitely some rooms where I've made the map and I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I've got an idea now for that room I didn't have an idea for before. But then, it's a kind of a mix between the two. Because sometimes, like I said, I'll ride around with empty index cards. I'll come up with a cool room for a dungeon I'm working on. and write it down, and then find where on the map I want it to go. But generally, my maps are finished before the rooms are finished at the end of the day.
It's a mix for me also. Although so far when I've been commissioning them, I've usually got the at least the outline of the intended format for the dungeon before commissioning the artwork for it. Though I'm not opposed to doing the opposite if I get the right artist who's into RPGs and understands what a dungeon should look like,
or what a spaceship should look like,
or what a spaceship should look like. Exactly. But I did want to mention Dropship just came out in the last technically 2 months. It's like 2 months and a couple of weeks. So if you haven't heard
ancient times, it came
yeah,
out.
I know. If you haven't heard of it and you would like to pick up a military sci-fi RPG, you can do that at blackwallgames.com. We are also working on a dungeon module for Horde Wars. Nate and I just finished plotting that out, and I'm supposed to meet with an artist on Friday to commission artwork, which is why we needed to have that meeting today. And we hope to have that out partway through next year. We're looking at a reasonably quick production run on that because we're using mostly stuff we've already tested, which is great. But there should be some new game content in there for players who are interested, in particular, unique magic artifacts, unique monsters to fight, that sort of thing.
Very cool.
You mean it's not just goblins?
That's correct.
Okay.
Alrighty. Greg, did you have anything you wanted to close out with?
No, my model is shifting to where I'm trying to design in the open now in the form of the Patreon and on YouTube. So I'm doing kind of idea design on my YouTube channel, and then when it moves to writing, it goes on my Patreon. And people will give you shit about anything, but like people will be like, "Oh, well, why are you making people pay for?" They're like, it's work. It's a way of me having some of the money ahead of time to buy the art and to do things. So it's a useful way of me doing my stuff. So that's what I'm doing. I try to, it also helps you stay on task because you're like, I need to put out a Patreon post every certain amount of days. So I need to stay motivated on the particular project, because one of the biggest enemies in this business is getting distracted by other projects and other things. You do enough and then you're like, oh, now it's doing the hard work. So now my brain wants to jump to something else. But the Patreon helps me stay on target.
All right. And then as we close out, I do want to briefly talk with Dan and Greg after. I know you got a game to get to, so I'll try to be very brief. But I hope everybody has a good night.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
for
y'all.
putting up with me in my fake Roger stead. And as Roger would say, closing out, play more games. Night, y'all.
Peace out, y'all.
Item.